On today's TCE Trim, KenPom joins the party as they drop their yearly rankings. Edition of the College Basketball Experience on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Sign up with our promo code TCESGPN to get a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. That is the promo code TCESGPN. And we're also brought to you by Rhythm. Start crushing college football and NFL with Rhythm. Get your 7-day free trial today by going over to that sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That is the sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM today. Welcome, everybody, into the College Basketball Experience. Well, episode 2 on the day, another trim, baby. Go check out our AP poll reaction, which teams we think are a little overvalued, undervalued, and all that good stuff. This one, we're diving into the KenPom and a little cocktail napkin that my friend over there has been crunching numbers all night long. But first off, I am Moneyline Mac, a.k.a. the former video coordinator for Bob Huggins and Frank Martin.
That's the wrong one.
What's going on? Technology. It's loading. All right. Back tonight over there. Welcome, everybody, in. I don't know what's going on. Music, having issues, technology issues. There we go.
There we go. It's the very end of it.
Came in. Apparently, can't do a double header. That freaking keyboard music better get going because the season's coming 3 weeks away. I am Mac tonight also over here at the College Experience. And joining me is our good friend, well, the guy that's always behind the scenes over here at the College Basketball Experience. He hosted the College Baseball Experience and over there at the College Football Experience behind the scenes. You guys know him as the window banging, drywall hanging, LeBaron driving, cocktail napkin having. Noah Bieniek, aka Noah B77. What's up, bro?
What's going on, Mac? Let's have some fun. Let's talk some power ratings. And this I weigh a little bit more heavily for gambling markets than I do AP Top 25. I asked you the question whether you like KenPom or Top 25 AP poll better. You answered KenPom as well.
Yep.
I was a little surprised about it, but overall, I mean, KenPom seems to be adopted by everybody, even bookmakers, and we're going to talk about that on the second half of the show when we get into the cocktail napkin. First half, let's talk a little bit about, KenPom. The ratings are computer based; it's not human based. There's like a couple of differences that we can point out between Top 25 and KenPom's for, say, Top 25. But KenPom's even better because it ranks all 364 college basketball teams. It ranks all the conferences based on strength. It even projects a lot of the records, and it's the most established, I would say, database that does this stuff. There are other college basketball databases that also participate in doing this, but I think KenPom has been the best for the longest period of time.
Mac,
yes, he is. Mac, let's start it off with just some general just observations. What did you see immediately when you pulled up KenPom for the first time, either last night or today?
Yeah, I like KenPom, and we've been using Bart Torvik as well over the years. I think Evan Maya also does a good job. So those are kind of the three horses. Shot quality's come along as well. So just giving our audience a little bit of a
and Haslam metrics is out there too.
Yeah, Haslam as well. But KenPom definitely has been the OG when it comes to offensive rating, defensive rating, adjusted tempo, luck. They got pretty much everything, and then they also everybody loves to look at their game projections, so including Vegas when they make the numbers. So KenPom has definitely become the guru for gambling on games. But that damn Big 12 keeps manipulating these freaking computer numbers again. God damn, I don't know what to say. They got 5 out of the top 10, or I guess 11. Baylor's not at 10. They're at 11. 6 in the top 17, 8 out of the top 21. Everybody basically in the top 100. So Big 12 just keeps on manipulating these numbers. Just kidding. I like to take a jab at everybody that just says that the Big 12 sucks and they just manipulate the numbers. Couldn't be farther from the truth. SEC actually took the crown for number one KenPom league, which I was a little bit surprised. I had the SEC power ranked a little bit behind the Big 12, but I mean neck and neck. I think 0.2 differential on the leagues. The Big East also falling right behind, the Big Ten, then the Big East, and then the ACC a clear fifth, and then you start getting into those kind of not high majors, but on the or mid-major pluses with the Mountain West, the A10, the AAC, and then the WCC with Gonzaga and St. Mary's. So not a lot of surprise. I know you're going to hit on a couple of the ones that made some big jumps or made some big falls from a 24 season to 25 season. But I'm looking forward to talking some KenPom data.
Yeah, why not? So a couple of conferences that made noticeable jumps based on net rating, based on the strength of the conference perceived going into this year in the preseason year. The SEC, like Mac mentioned, they went from finishing 4th last season to now being projected as the best conference in college basketball this year. Also, shout out to two other mid majors that made a little bit of a jump up. The MAC went from 24th to 21st. And the Patriot League, guys. The Patriot League is going to be so fun this year. They went from the Patriot League last year, finished as the 31st power ranked league. Now they're 26th. And if you pull this thing up on KenPom, it's exactly what Mac and I were talking about, where Colgate is going to take a large step back. He's projecting them at 11-7, which is still tied for first, but it's a 3-way tie with American and Boston, who I didn't have up there. I don't think you did either. We both were higher on Bucknell, who is then in another 3-way tie for third at 10-8. So you have 3 teams at 11-7, 3 teams at 10-8. Bucknell, Navy, Lehigh. Lehigh was the team that you picked to win this league. I picked American. Army, of course, with Jalen Rucker back. They're 9-9 projected in conference. And then there's 2 bottom feeders in Holy Cross and Loyola, Maryland. Down there, 6-5 wins, respectively, kind of, feeding a lot of this mayhem at the top of the standings. But the Patriot League is going to be parity driven and a lot of fun to watch this year. Another league that, during our conference preview for it, literally on Friday, we posted the audio today, Monday morning. The Big Ten, we weren't too excited about it because it's just a bunch of jumbled mess. And literally from 11-9 record to 9-11 record, there are 15 teams. Mac, 15 teams make the Big Ten conference tournament. One of the 9-11 teams, by the way, there are 5 of them. One of them, if projected standings go as projected, which never happens, but one of these 9-11 teams that are tied in a 5-way tie would miss the Big Ten tournament. Just outrageous.
So you're breaking news to me. I did not know that. So the Big Ten, all 18 teams aren't going to Chicago or Indy or wherever they're playing it this year?
Indy, yeah. Not all 18 are going to Indy.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So the biggest discrepancy between the 2 main sources of analytics that we talk about, KenPom and Bartorvik, Rutgers. Bartorvik has Rutgers 3rd in the Big Ten.
63rd overall.
Yes, KenPom
KenPom has Rutgers 63rd overall.
Yeah, KenPom has them finishing 17th. So 3rd and 17, and then the AP poll has them 25th. So somebody's going to be dead wrong here. I'm siding with KenPom. I don't think 17th although I think I may have put them 15th or 16th on Friday night when we did our rankings. Man, this league's going to be wild. Just with, it's not the best league. Obviously, it doesn't have the firepower up top that the Big 12 and SEC and even Big East have. But from like just a middle of the pack, I mean, when looking at this league, you gotta dive into who's got the home court situational advantages, because home court has always been such a big thing in the Big Ten. With you can knock the Big Ten, not like their brand of basketball, that's fine, but home court matters with these fan bases, these college towns, and the coaches. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to the Big Ten in terms of the actual parity, because I mean, hell, somebody could finish 8-12 and not be invited to the tournament, like you said.
Yeah, it's going to be super interesting. On the flip side of this episode, we're going to get into the cocktail napkin. And what is the cocktail napkin? Give us a minute and we'll explain. The college basketball experience is brought to you by the newest show of the SGPN Sports Gambling Podcast Network. Get to the points. It's a NFL picks show hosted by professional comedians Doug Stanhope, Brendan Walsh, and Sean Green. All of them love to talk shit. They're giving out their favorite NFL plays Thursday night before the Thursday night football game and before the weekend's action. So go over there, subscribe wherever you get podcasts, or subscribe here on YouTube to the Sports Gambling Podcast, where they're currently housing these shows, because it's a ton of fun. Grab a drink, grab a joint, listen, and have some fun. Interact with the guys, because, Thursday nights have gotten so much more interesting with their show. The college basketball experience is also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. They are always adding new things to their awesome menu. There are a ton of ways to win with NFL, college football, MLB, MMA, NHL, even college basketball when the season rolls around. The lobby is always jam-packed with profit boosts and no sweat entries, and now you can use those on all flexed entries. Sign up today with promo code TCE SGPN to claim your special pick plus first time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code TCE SGPN. And we're also brought to you by BetUS. They've been around for more than 30 years, and you can support SGPN and yourself by getting access to another great book by signing up at BetUS. Use our link to get a 125% deposit bonus on your first 3 deposits. Go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/BetUS. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/BetUS. Promo code SGPN so they know we sent you. BetUS, America's favorite sportsbook. And SGPN's proud partner, Rhythm, is the #1 AI-powered sports betting platform that helps provide bettors of all levels the ability to build custom predictive betting models in seconds and get predictions for betting on money lines, spreads, totals, and props. Build your own model or copy one of the top-performing models from the leaderboard, and Rhythm will give you predictions for every game and player prop, and also a myriad of stats, research, and trend analysis to give you even more betting insights. Claim your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. And we're back here on the college basketball experience, celebrating the drop day, the release day of the 2025 KenPom ratings. And immediately what I did when I woke up today, spending about 6 hours of my first 6 hours of the day was focused on going through all the conferences that we've already previewed, both Mac and I, or Mac, I, and Colby, or whether it be the Big 12 or the ACC with some guests, and NC Nick, Troy, Rush from the Big 12 college experience. I went through and I basically made a composite ranking of our preseason college basketball conference rankings, and I compared them to KenPom. Basically, everybody asks during the pick shows, what is a cocktail napkin? What does it mean when you have a possession's worth of value, or you make this line -12? Basically, it's impossible to explain during a 1 hour, 1.5 hour, sometimes 2 hour Saturday show for picks. And people get annoyed when I just drop random numbers and say, hey, there's value here. And Mac makes fun of it. Colby makes fun of it. And that's where the name the cocktail napkin came from. But it's basically an elementary regression or progression model I don't call it a model because it's not mine. I'm using KenPom's numbers, but I'm taking the teams that we are higher on or lower on, and it creates value against the market because Mac lately in recent years, bookmakers have gotten maybe not lazy is the correct term, but they've really trusted KenPom and some other databases on this because the transfer portal and recruiting and all this nonsense, the coaching carousel is crazy, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, and if you don't just religiously follow KenPom when picking your games this year, because there's definitely spots where the books will take a stand on a game where everybody's like, well, why is that number so short or why is that number so large? And they'll look at KenPom and be like, oh, I'm getting a possession worth of value on KenPom. And
Yeah.
it's just something. KenPom isn't the Bible. It's a source, a resource, just like Bar Torvik that you can use for your research night in and night out.
100%. And Mac, they open sometimes, I would say 80% of the lines that you'll see on a college basketball slate are opened with a number based around in the ballpark, a half point of KenPom. Now, based on when you bet it, that edge could already be gone. And that's when what I'm doing comes into play. Because not all the time are we getting the opening number. But if you're looking at, hey, KenPom's got Minnesota -3 against Penn State today, but the market has Minnesota -5, and you say, hey, Penn State has 2 points of value now because it's +3. Well, a bunch of other sharps already bet up Minnesota. Like that number is old news now. Like if it's 5-6 hours away, basically what I've used now, this is the 4th year going into it, and I'm still very, very basic with what I've done. I'm not a spreadsheet nerd or anything, but I am taking teams and I'm labeling them as either buys or fades in the market based off KenPom's ratings on 3 points or more of difference, whether we're higher or lower on teams. Come game day on the fan match portion section of the website, all the games are listed, the projected spreads. On 2 points of value, these have hit at 58.7%. On 3 points of value, 63.2%. It makes a lot of money, specifically early on in the year before bookmakers start to be courageous and vary from predictive analytic models. But let's have some fun. Let's rewind all of the conference previews that we've done to this point. From now on, by the way, we're going to do this at the end of our shows. We did it last year, and we'll be doing that again for the final 14 conference previews. But Mac, like I said, I took a composite. We'll go through each high major conference, and we'll label the teams that we were higher on, the teams that we're lower on, and where there's perceived value in the market. Let's start off with that number 1 rated league now, the new rated SEC. We are high on Texas A&M. Texas A&M is ranked 4th on KenPom. We collectively put Texas A&M 2nd in the SEC. And basically our composite ranking, by the way, too, it'll eliminate any of our bold takes, any of our, my weaknesses when it comes to coaches or culture, or Colby's weaknesses, whether it comes to, specific stat rankings and whatnot. I don't know what I'm spewing at this point, but it eliminates bias because there's 3, 4, 5 people going into this composite ranking. We had Texas A&M 2nd. Right now, if you look at KenPom, Texas A&M's 4th, and they're basically 21.5 points better than the average college basketball team on a neutral floor. If you bump them to 2nd place in the conference, where Alabama is currently at 25.66, that's more than a possession. So basically all I've done is I've bumped them up by a possession. So when they show up on the fan match, Texas A&M 76, Texas 70. So Texas A&M would be -6. We, the Cocktail Napkin, would make that number -9. Are you picking up what I'm putting down, Mac? Am I doing a good
I
job
am.
of
Yeah.
explaining it?
Yep.
All right, perfect. So we had Auburn ranked as a collective 3rd in the SEC, and that's where the give and take comes, because we're high on one team, we're going to be a little bit collectively lower on another. I personally had Auburn winning the conference, but you guys eliminated my bias or my bold take of Auburn winning it, and you picked them 3rd. 3rd, it was more than a possession drop down from 2nd to 3rd, or from 1st to 3rd, I mean. So I dropped them a possession in the Cocktail Napkin. So we were lower on Tennessee. We were lower on Texas. Texas was a big one. We ranked Texas 10th. Texas was ranked 5th by KenPom on the power ratings. So they got a little bit of a jump, a little bit of a bump down. And then the other team that got a big bump down was Oklahoma. We ranked Oklahoma at 14th, and Oklahoma's right in the middle of the pack. So they got nerfed for a little bit of a lack of a better term. Ole Miss got 2 bumps up. So we ranked Ole Miss as a collective 5th in the SEC. Ole Miss coming in is 11th, and their rating was 15.18. If you put them basically where Texas was at with 20.05, they got 2 possessions worth of a bump up. So we're going to be pretty high on Ole Miss. Mac had them picked 2nd in the SEC. He's going to be high on Ole Miss. We're high on Arkansas, and that wraps up the SEC. Mac, any input that you want on the SEC before we move on?
The Cocktail Napkin likes the better coaches and is fading the unproven coaches, aka Rodney Terry and Porter Moser, and it likes Chris Beard, it likes Buzz Williams. So yeah, I was Texas doesn't surprise me just because roster standpoint, the numbers always fall in love with them. But we talked about the question marks with Rodney Terry. Oklahoma, I was shocked when I saw that they were middle of the pack above Kentucky. So maybe we're missing something there.
The first time Kentucky's not in the top 40 in like ever. First time in history. So
I don't know. It's interesting, and I'm still trying to figure out how the SEC was number 1. I think Greg Sankey paid off KenPom to get his rankings boosted here.
So let's go to your beloved league, the Big 12. There were 2 buys and 2 fades on this league. Come to the KenPom ratings and what we perceive the market to be when this all comes to fruition. Houston was power rated 1st in the conference. We picked them 3rd. So we bumped Houston down by a possession. We bumped up Kansas by a possession because there was such a big difference from 1st to 2nd. And basically what I believe, and I think you do too, Kansas has a ton of experienced production on the team. They're not young. Kansas is going to be good right away, whereas other teams might peak later in February and March and catch up and maybe pass Kansas. We know what Kansas is going to be basically because they return 3 starters and they bring in so many high caliber transfers. We gave Kansas a bump. We're also giving Kansas State a bump because they were picked 7th by us in conference, and I believe they were 10th on Torvik. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
9.
6, 7, 9th. And going from 9th to 7th was a 6-point bump. So gave that to Kansas State, and we also bumped down BYU. So those were the 4 changes in the Big 12. Mac, that's your league, your bread and butter. Any thoughts?
Yeah. I was a little surprised at how ahead they had Houston. Like, I don't get me wrong, I love Houston. And from an analytics standpoint, their defensive numbers jump off the charts. Them and Iowa State are by far number 1 and number 2 from an analytics standpoint defensively. It's not even funny. It's just like super green on my screen over here whenever I see their defensive power rating. I just think that they're a little bit more down on Kansas just because they had a down year. But you mentioned it. It's Dickinson's second year in the system. You got DeJuan Harris back. You got KJ Adams back. They're gonna hit the road running right away, and that's why we're higher on a lot of these Big 12 teams, just because of the experience that are coming back. I would imagine that the Mountaineers got a little bit of a bump because they were picked in the basement via KenPom. I think we had them a little bit out of the KenPom.
So KenPom had them 15th. We had West Virginia 11th, but it's such a cluster at the bottom of the Big 12 rankings, so it wasn't enough to give them a full possessions worth. But I have all the KenPom opens tracked, and if they ever fall below that 3-point margin, I add them in the middle of the season, and that's how the cocktail napkin, it actually grows throughout the year. Right now, I only have 47 teams buy in fades. So I think there were 26 fades and 21 buys.
Hey, were we fading? Were we fading Houston and BYU though last year on the napkin?
No, we were actually buying BYU for a little bit, and then it turned into a fade because they were so high.
Yeah.
So that was kind of how that worked. We were like, they have to regress at some point. And they did in conference play, but it took a little bit. We took a little bit of a beating in December, January. I remember fading BYU then. Hasty brings up a great point, and this is what creates value too. KenPom and all the other predictive college basketball public models bake in priors, so past results. So, for example, I don't know how specifically the math goes, but KenPom's going to rate the 2024 finish by 50%. Then he's going to rate the 2023 finish by about 20%, 2022, 15, 2021, 10. It basically gives recent success a bump. And that's how you can kind of track, how well a culture is, how good a coach is. That's how you kind of rate that. And based on transfer portal and all these freaking changes that happen throughout the offseason, that's what creates value for us a little bit. Because Virginia, like Gary mentions, they're ranked 13th in KenPom right now. I don't know how that came to be, because usually Virginia would be in the top 5 and you don't know how to explain it, but you just know that the defensive foundation is going to get them to a top 3 finish in the ACC. We still believe that on TCE. We ranked Virginia collectively 3rd. So Virginia is getting a bump up. Let's skip to the ACC. Let's talk ACC, because there was quite a few downgrades. We bumped down Clemson. So Colby had a bold take on Clemson finishing 11th. So that gave Clemson a little bit of bump down. NC Nick had them 2nd. I had them 5th. I don't know where Mac had them finishing.
I want to say 7th or 8th.
Yeah. So overall in the ACC, we ranked Clemson 7th. Currently, they're 3rd on KenPom, and from 3rd to 7th, there was more than a possession. So we gave Clemson a bump down. The biggest downgrade on the cocktail napkin from KenPom is Pitt. And
sharp this year, baby.
And no, it's not because of that West Virginia bias that you can hear the excited voice on the other end of the screen. Pitt loses a lot of production. They lose their 2 best players from last season, in Bub Carrington and Blake Hinson. How are they going to replace that? I don't know, but they shouldn't be power rated 4th. We have Pitt picked 13th. So from 4th to 13th, that was 2 possessions, 6 points worth of a downgrade. So we're going to be pretty low on Pitt coming this year. Low on NC State. NC State's run to the Final Four, I'm sure, gave them a pretty solid, sturdy mark in the power ratings. We put NC State 12th in our preseason rankings. Again, Virginia, we had them 3rd. They were picked 13th, so they get a really good bump up. Stanford was picked, 15th, and we had them 17th. So a bump down for Stanford as well by more than a possession. One of the biggest upgrades was Cal. We ranked Cal 11th. They were 18th on the ACC. So 3 possessions worth of a bump up. So that's one of the strongest teams that we believe in here in the preseason. The Big Ten, there was only 2 changes, 1 upgrade, 1 downgrade. Nebraska, we had ranked 10th, and they were power rated kind of in the lower half. So they got a bump up. Maryland gets the bump down in reaction to that Nebraska. Maryland goes down by possession. Any reactions from the ACC or Big Ten from you, Mac?
So I want to go back to the ACC first and kind of highlight why, outside of me being a West Virginia fan, why Pitt and then, of course, Clemson you throw in there too, and then NC State would be downgraded, is because those teams overachieved the last couple of years too. So you look at kind of the track record of where it's been under Capel, Brownell, and then Keats. They kind of have maximized and been on the luckier side of a couple of these runs that they've been a part of. So it's going to even out, and that's why I think as a group we were all a little bit more down. Obviously, the Pitt one is a big downgrade, but they also have had the best ATS record, I think, back-to-back years in college basketball. So we could see like a 8-22 Pitt ATS this year. That would just be absolutely beautiful. That one guy that always tweets at me when Pitt wins he'll be in hibernation. So, but Virginia's the hardest one because I remember when we were doing it, I looked at the analytics before, and I'm just like, they're so down on them, and I get why they're down on them. They're boring. They played at an extremely slow pace. But it goes back to our point of Tony Bennett finds a way to win. That's where you can't rely only on numbers. You have to know that Tony Bennett, they're going to win a shitload of 50 to 45 games, 50, 55, 52. Like, they're going to win a bunch of one-score games. The computers are going to always hate them because they don't fit that bill. They don't shoot a bunch of threes. So, like, that's where you got to balance the numbers, and then you also got to balance the human nature and culture and just a track record of winning. And that's what Tony Bennett's done no matter who's been there. Big Ten, total shit show that we've talked about over and over again. I don't really know. We did the preview, and I was guessing when we were going about through 5 through 13 on who I wanted to rank in that thing, because they're all going to be tied or within one game of each other.
Yeah. And as KenPom said, or is saying in his ratings, 15 teams within 3 wins of each other. It's really crazy and a jumbled mess in the middle.
Rutgers 8-12, and guys, put in perspective. Rutgers 8-12 in the 17 seed. Illinois 11-9 in the 2 seed. What is this league?
Fun. It might be very fun this year. Yes. Moving on to the Big East, we had St. John's collectively ranked second in the Big East. They were third on power rankings, but still there was a 4-point difference from second to third, Creighton to St. John's. So we gave St. John's the bump up. Creighton we had third, so Creighton got a slight bump down. And Creighton, for what it's worth, might not have Fedor Zugic, so maybe their best player outside of Kalkbrenner might not be eligible early in November. So definitely could be worth a fade early. Butler gets a slight bump up. We had Butler collectively ranked 7th. They were 8th. And from 7th to 8th, it was 13.13, 9.97. So we give Butler a 3-point bump. And Providence, we had collectively ranked 8th. So just a slight bump down for Providence. And also in the Mountain West, there was one change, one edge that we found. It was Air Force. We ranked Air Force dead last, and somehow Air Force was 9th. So gave them a bump down. Anything on the Big East or Mountain West, Mac?
And I would probably just hammer one last point across, and it kind of, I'm just looking at the Big East with St. John's. Just as a perfect example, I think some people criticize me for valuing the coaching too much, but I completely disagree with that, because one thing we do know in college basketball, the rosters change year in and year out, but the coaches really don't change that much. They may go to a different job, but the really good coaches always find a way to win 20-plus games. Yeah, they may have an outlier season where they go 500, 16 and 17 and miss the tournament. But 90% of the time, they're going to find a way to win 20 plus games, get to the dance. So that's why we value so much coaching on this show compared to others that want to break down offensive and defensive efficiency. Don't get me wrong, that does matter, but the good coaches find a way to get their teams playing the best ball at the end of the year when they need to get those wins to get to March.
I break down offensive efficiency and defensive efficiency.
You value coaching though too. Some people don't value coaching at all, and I'm like,
that's where the composite ranking comes through. Like, you have more knowledge on a coach's base and culture base, and I go more into the numbers, and it perfectly evens out in ways. So,
like Noah, for example, if Tom Izzo needs a win at the end of the year to get to the dance, they're going to find a way to win that goddamn game, like they did against Illinois last year. They had a team that went to the Elite Eight, and somehow, some way, they trailed the whole game. Oh, and what do you know? Sparty pulls away at the end, punch her ticket in the dance. Same with Pitino. They just got jobbed by the selection committee. So these really good coaches just find a way to maximize everything out of it, and that's why they're always playing good ball come February and March.
And like I said, at the end of our conference previews from this point on until we finish them, we'll have a short 2-minute cocktail napkin. Hey, this team is going to be on the napkin because we're buying or fading them. I'm going to zoom through a lot of the mid-majors. We'll finish up the buys. I'll let Mac talk on any of the teams that he wants. Toledo's getting a bump up by 3 points. Little Rock is getting a bump up by 3 points. St. Peter's
Little Rock receiving votes.
Yeah, they were on the AP Top 25. So shout out to the Little Cock. St. Peter's as well, getting a bump up. Merrimack, Corpus Christi, Bowling Green, all bump up by 3 points. Eastern Illinois, one of our largest bumps by 9 points, 3 possessions. Eastern Illinois is a team that we're going to be high on here in the upcoming season. Maybe not so much in the non-conference when they're playing against high major opponents or some bye games, but when they get in the conference play, we're going to be high on the Panthers. Sela, UTRGV, Canisius, Northern Illinois all get a bump up by 1 possession. Southern Indiana, 2 possessions worth of value going up. Jackson State and SEMO bump up by a possession. Mac, any input from you on any of those teams that we've labeled as buys?
We're going to be drinking for free when we go to Charleston, Illinois for EIEIO at Marty's, baby. We got EIU as our biggest upgrade. What other show highlights that? I want to highlight it. I think you hit the nail on the head with the teams that we're upgrading. The league, in terms of the mid-majors, that is a total biggest crapshoot. If you go over to the WAC, sorry, not the WAC.
Not the WAC. The WAC's the biggest difference from first.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, the biggest. Thank you, Noah, for this. Sometimes I get sidetracked. Grand Canyon is the biggest drop off from top dog to second place. A 4-game difference. They have Grand Canyon going 13-3, then Seattle and Cal Baptist at 9-7. The Big Sky, which we're doing the preview here soon, was the tightest from first place to last place. Every team in that league between 11-7, Weber State, Montana State, all the way down to Idaho State at 7-11. So you have everybody between 11 wins and 7 wins. So Big Sky is going to be extremely fun. You already hit on the Patriot League. We already hit. I mean, that thing is going to be wide open. Everybody between 11 and 9 wins from first to 8th place. But yeah,
you got distracted and diverted a little bit. You were going to mention the OVC, how they're split.
How could I forget my former league? Yes. Moorhead leading the way at 13-7 with Little Rock. But then if you kind of look down, Lindenwood and Tennessee Tech and Tennessee Martin are in the basement. They're at 8 wins. So you got every team in that league between 8 and 13 wins. So a lot of parity in these mid-major leagues. Of course, this is projections, and we'll see how these teams play in November, December, who's healthy, who's better than we thought, or who's worse than we thought. So, but hey, can't wait.
Yes, sir. And I'm pulling up to make sure. So I messed up one page on OVC, so we'll not mention the fades on OVC, but I took last year's finished rankings, because could be a little bit of a difference on Eastern Illinois. Where was Eastern Illinois?
Don't
We
tell
were.
everybody. I want free drinks at Marty's. I want free drinks at Marty's in the unique suites.
We had them. So KenPom had them fourth to last. I'll have to figure that out. I still think we were really high on them. I think we had Eastern Illinois fourth in our composite.
Yeah, I had EIU top 4 because of Marty Simmons.
Yeah, me too. So I think they were fourth in the composite. I think they're seventh in KenPom, and that is still a possession. So it's not 3 possessions; it's only 1. I fucked up on the OVC. My apologies.
No, you didn't.
Let's go through the fades and then get this. Let's go through the fades and then finish up this TCE trim. Nicholls State, Iona, Air Force, North Florida, Mount St. Mary's, and Lamar all get bumped down 1 possession. Albany gets bumped down 2 possessions. Eastern Michigan, Tennessee State get bumped down 1 possession. UT Martin and New Orleans get a bump down. So that's going to wrap up the fades. Any thoughts on those, Mac?
Some teams that maybe, in my opinion, overachieved once again last year, that may be coming back down for a little bit of regression, maybe an outlier in that coach's tenure. Also, maybe some of the teams that are bigger name brands, Iona, for example, that maybe they're not as good as their brand name.
They're replacing a ton.
Yeah,
like they hit the transfer portal hard.
Exactly. So, yeah, we'll dive more into this and obviously highlight this because our first pick show is less than 3 weeks away, my man.
Yes, it is. And like we said, I use this every night for those pick shows. We'll be mentioning them during the previews. If you want to know more on why we had each one of these as a bump, like a bump up in a buy or a fade category, go listen to all those conference previews. We've got them all currently out there. We've done 17 of them. They're in a nice playlist on YouTube here for you guys if you want to binge them, along with these TCE trims, along with Mac's coaches interviews, along with the college football experience, college baseball experience, the Big 12 college experience. We've got everything coming together as a collective over on the college experience SGPN YouTube page. Go leave a like, rating, review, subscribe wherever you're listening on podcast platforms. Subscribe, leave a like here on YouTube. We greatly appreciate it. It helps out the algorithm. This was fun, and I plan on never explaining this again because it took us 43 minutes to go over today. But that's the cocktail napkin. And now, since you listened to this show and nobody else did, when we get thousands of viewers during the shows, you guys know how it's made, and we can't explain it because those shows are already an hour and a half long. So this has been the college basketball experience. You better start thinking about yours, and we out of here.